Greetings and welcome to this light edition of an episode of Captain's Yacht, a Star Trek The Next Generation review series done by two inner-city high school teachers. The purpose of these light episodes is to demonstrate more intermediate levels of video editing and videography for students that have the basic understanding of how podcasting works and decide they want to expand on their knowledge. An added purpose of our light episodes is to break Scholar Beta's and my discussions of Star Trek The Next Generation from a 90-minute podcast episode into smaller, more manageable pieces for you, the YouTube audience. So let's beam aboard the Captain's Yacht and see what we're all talking about today. Alright, so, where no one has gone before. This is stardate 41263.1. Again, kind of out of order there. That plays into this theory that they showed these episodes, and you can do that with a show like this because it's not long form storytelling. Little behind the scenes stuff here. This episode was written by TOS pocket novel author Diane Duane. Growing up, I read a lot of her work growing up.
Dang, nice.
Yeah. In the early drafts of the script, there was no Traveler.
Ooh.
Yeah. Maurice
That's
Hurley.
huge.
Yeah, that is huge. So that's a good ad. There are so many things about this episode which I think it would have benefited more if they stayed in the early drafts, stuck to the early drafts. But the Traveler not being there is definitely a glaring omission, and I'm glad he's there. The arrival of the Enterprise in the higher dimension was made possible by a fluke made by Kaczynski, the Tony Stark-esque character, but without the charm. I got a lot of Tony Stark vibes from him, except he's not charismatic and he's grating. Picard and Crusher were supposed to be visited by Jack Crusher in this realm.
Oh.
Yeah. And the Enterprise was supposed to materialize in the yolk of a cosmological egg, as the script says. I would say it's a singularity, because when they go out of the singularity and finally create the equation to get them back to normal space, they create a new universe. So, yes, Scholar Beta.
I wish Picard and Crusher had been visited by Jack. Wow, that would have been insanely interesting. We are going to get some Jack Crusher. We will, but not to season 4 or 5, somewhere in there?
Yeah, something like that.
In the episode Violations? Dang, that would have been interesting.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just think that's fascinating.
No, I'm glad you think it's great, because as I said, I think as good as this episode is, I think it would have benefited a lot more if they stuck to the earlier drafts. For example, that and the ultimate resolution of the script, where they try to inverse the formula that got them there, and in so doing, they create a new universe. And when they return to normal space-time, they discover that this entire excursion lasted 6 days, and they arrived on the 7th, and following, as they call, biblical observance in the script, Picard ordered a day of rest because they're basically gods. They created a new universe.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that definitely, that is all scrapped in what we actually get. Instead of creating a new verse, we're just really a long ways from home. We'll get there when we talk about the premise here in just a second. But honestly, two sad losses. I'm glad they included the Traveler, but the whole no Jack Crusher materializing, that could have been really terrifying and amazing. And the whole creating their own pocket universe, who knows? That could have had implications down the line too. That'd been fascinating. Okay, so let's talk a little bit what actually happens. What ended up going down when the final draft got into the hands of the directors? Well, in this episode where no one has gone before, the Enterprise D hosts propulsion specialist Kaczynski, no first name, whose breakthrough developments in starship propulsion appear to be complete rubbish. During tests of this propulsion system or propulsion equation, whatever it is, it's not like a new piece of equipment brought on board. The Enterprise is thrown 2.7 million light years away from Earth, or away from its, original heading, into galaxy M33. And then when they attempt a second propulsion test, they are then thrown 1 billion light years away. Whereas Data says where none have gone before. So again, when I think about this episode, I think this is another classic Trek episode. Instead of a space anomaly, we have an experiment gone wrong. This is going to happen a ton in Star Trek. In season 3, episode 1, Wesley's going to give sentience to a bunch of nanites that are going to take over and infect the Enterprise. Beverly's going to get caught in some sort of time distortion, which is an experiment gone wrong. This happens all the time, so I'm going to just file this under a classic Trek experiment gone wrong genre. Some tropes we're working with. We have our first inclusion of a Starfleet jerk. Oh, we're going to get a ton of them in TNG, but we get some Starfleet jerks. I recall what you were saying about how Roddenberry thought it was more important to have a counselor than an engineer. I think it's very obvious why. We have a bunch of giant egos in Star Trek who need some counseling, you know? We're also going to get a couple tropes. Your mind makes it real. Straight out of the Matrix. We are also going to get the chosen one, I'm saying. I'm going to talk about Wesley here in a little bit. And also something TV tropes calls angel unaware. You know, we don't realize the Traveler is kind of this superhuman alien creature. It's, you know, kind of an angel among us, but we just don't know about it. And then our final trope is just simply a long ways from home. A billion light years is a very long ways from home.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of the type of science fiction we're looking at for this particular episode. But let's talk about what works. Can I get us started off with that really fast? Okay, I'm going to say so far, this is probably my favorite episode we've seen so far. You know, I maybe say Encounter at Farpoint was, you know, last time we talked, but I think this one really does a couple things well for me. One, I love the special effects. They're very reminiscent of 2001 Space Odyssey, which it has a huge place in my heart. I just think that it just works. It just plays on that. It just plays on that really nicely. I also think the dynamic, even though we can talk that Kaczynski, he kind of sucks, the dynamic between him and the Traveler reveals that pride and ego are very much alive in Starfleet, and that Starfleet specialist would plagiarize warp systems theory, you know, in order to advance his career, which is really interesting. Kaczynski wants the fame. You know, this is what Maddox and Measure of a Man and other people are going to be susceptible to as well in future episodes. And then last thing I think that's really fascinating about this, kind of some world building, Kaczynski says when they're thrown 2.7 million light years off course, he says, in 3 centuries of space travel, we've charted just 11% of our galaxy. And then we accomplished this. So I think it's fascinating that, like, yeah, even though, you know, TNG, you know, 24th century?
24th century.
Even though we're in the 24th century, we've only charted 11% of our galaxy. I think that's fascinating. You know, it makes sense then that there's a crew out there on a starship just going forward, you know, trying to encounter and document and be diplomatic with new civilizations. So I don't know. I like this episode, and I like the premise and some of the world building we get from it. You've got some notes on character, because we definitely get a lot of good stuff about character. Let's talk about that for a little bit. What do you think about some character study?
I definitely agree with the world building, and also I'd second that with character building, because you have a lot of stuff here. You have Picard. Again, the common theme, it seems, since Encounter at Farpoint is to soften Picard and make him more likable and make him more personable. And this episode is the best example of that, because he suddenly sees a projection of his mother, or some sort of manifestation of his mother. He almost cries at one point, suggesting that, I don't know, I got a vibe that something tragic might have happened to his mother, because they kind of play the character arcs that are established here. I think they were a good start, but I think they abandoned them as they established other characters. Case in point, when you see Worf, Worf is smiling. He's talking affectionately about his little pet Targ, which apparently, I got this from the script notes. The Targ was smelly. People hated having the Targ on the set, but he's happy, and considering later the fact that his tragic backstory is established, I don't know which way they went with that, but
was the Targ on Kittimer? Does it matter? Do we know? Will we ever know? Yeah.
Well, and by the time Yar passes away, she mentions that Worf is a an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's a good touch considering you don't see very much Worf in these first couple episodes. It's a good character moment to have him sit there with his Targ. That's the most Trekkie thing I think I've said this whole weekend. But is a Klingon and his Targ, a
A
boy and
boy in
his
his target.
dog.
Exactly.
Yep, a
Exactly.
Klingon and his Targ. Riker, his bond with Wesley gets stronger. He owns up to his mistake of ignoring Wesley.
Mm.
Wesley shows off his technical aptitude in a way that shows up Kaczynski, shows kindness to the traveler, boosts his emotional intelligence to match his raw
Mm.
intelligence.
Yeah.
Because a common criticism of Wesley Crusher is that he's a know-it-all, and
Mm.
giving him that emotional intelligence to match the raw intelligence was nice. Um, you have the softer side of Yar. You see her with her childhood pet, little kitty
Uh-huh.
cat, and you got that. And those are the things that I think work really, really well. It's the strongest character study. It expands more and exceeds better than where Naked Now did in terms of examining character. I think, yeah. So
Yeah, I will definitely second your thought on Patrick Stewart's acting and Picard's interaction with his mother. There's actually a really great moment where he's talking to mom, and Riker comes up and interrupts them, and he puts his hand up. He's like, "No, now, number one," and it really makes it seem like, "Oh, I just have another moment with my mom left, and don't interrupt this." And you're right, the sort of the tone there that I'm getting is, yeah, maybe something tragic, or maybe he didn't get to spend enough time with his mom, or he never had a relationship, and maybe now he is sad about that. I don't know, but you're right there. Man, Patrick Stewart's acting, and a lot of folks acting, not just Patty Stewart's, but a lot of folks acting in this series is awesome, and just that little moment right there is really incredible. Okay, I didn't know if I should put this under what works or what doesn't, so I'll just mention it now as sort of the transition to what doesn't work. But okay, so basically, we're establishing for canon in this episode that thought can now bend and manipulate time and space. And that when Wesley understands this, the traveler cautions him and tells him that that knowledge is dangerous, with the implication that humans are not ready for certain technology or powers, right? And moreover, then the traveler tells Picard in sickbay to not interfere with Wesley's development, which I think is really fascinating. So this is kind of like thematically similar to a prime directive. Picard cannot
mm-hmm.
interfere in Wesley's development as this sort of superhuman or potentially super powerful being. I don't know. I think that's really interesting. I'm not sure if that works or doesn't, but yeah, let us transition to Kaczynski now. And what doesn't work is we'll talk about Kaczynski and the Traveler a little bit more over here. So, Captain, what do you think? What are your thoughts about Kaczynski and him not working?
I think he's absolutely insufferable. I think the writers were going for the person that understands machines better than people, and
Yes.
that kind of archetype. Going back to what I said earlier about archetypes, it can work pretty well. I'm pretty sure you and I know some people who definitely fit that archetype,
Sure.
where they
Yeah. Yeah.
understand people better than machines better than people.
Oh yeah.
But he's well, I put the phrase he's a total putz. He undercuts everybody. As I said before, he's basically Tony Stark, but without the charisma and charm, because you
Yeah.
can see a similar thing being said by Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. The lines are very similar. And I was wondering about that while I was watching this. I was like, how could Tony Stark say this and it's effective and it's endearing, but Kaczynski says it and it's not. And I think maybe it's improper direction. But I do agree with him with the whole thought being the foundation of reality monologue and how he kind of undercuts that, because the whole thesis of Star Trek, especially with Gene Roddenberry, is science and technology solve our problems. and it's all about the empirical, it's all about the concrete. Intuitive stuff can come in where appropriate, but it's all about the empirical. And the thing I
Yeah.
don't like, in addition to Kaczynski, is it gets kind of use the force sort
Yeah.
of mentality, very new age, very kind of hippy dippy at the end of this episode, which is a major
Yes.
letdown, which is why I think they would have benefited a lot more with the create a formula, invert the formula, see if it works, and create a new pocket reality. I like that plot resolution better than Picard effectively saying, send thoughts and prayers to the traveler. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
essentially what he says at the end.
Exactly, exactly. All right, I'll need everyone to think positive thoughts for the travel. Okay, so here's my thing. Here's my thing. Did they really think out this whole time thought reality thing at all? Because these opening energies episodes pour so much energy, as I talked about at the top of this episode, into developing Wesley, right? So like Wesley already has a field promotion to acting ensign, right? And now he is some sort of Mozart prodigal figure whose mind is able to shape reality, right? Okay, so far in TNG, that's what Wesley gets. Okay, so far in TNG, Data is a supercomputer fish out of water. Okay, that's what he gets. And so far in TNG, Picard wins with speeches, right? But Wesley is prophesized to be as almost powerful as a Q by episode. What are we on 5 now? It's just it's 6. I mean, this is just insane to me. West could have ended the entire Dominion War, resettled the Baku, traveled to the Borg homeworld and destroyed the Queen, and brought Voyager back home with his powers. I'm just saying he could have
Yep.
done all of those things, So I don't know. It seems like, kind of those things we do as when we were kids and we're playing make believe and we introduce something that's way too powerful into the make believe story. And now it kind of broke it a little bit. So that's kind of something I'm critical of. And it's not like the Traveler's going to be in every episode or anything. Traveler makes maybe like 2 more appearances in the show. I
At
want to
least a
say,
couple. Yeah,
yeah,
at
at least a
least
couple
two.
more. So,
And you
yeah.
mentioned the Traveler. There is a connection between the actor who played the Traveler and modern time right now. I mean, not
Oh,
modern
interesting.
time
Yeah.
right now. The scripts. Sorry. You and I talked about this earlier.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is the connection between the Traveler and the cast? The actor who played the Traveler.
Yeah, so what I found out was that the Traveler actually auditioned to play Data. I can't remember the actor's name. Don't have it in my notes right now. But obviously that went to Brett Spiner, and who does an amazing job. Yeah, I'm grateful for that casting decision. Not that the Traveler does a bad job or anything like that, but Spiner is just pretty masterful at Data. I can't imagine him any other way.
Oh yeah.
And also, I'll just say one last thing about the Traveler. Yeah, they're doing the whole ridge prosthetic on his face thing, raising the brows, and then they're giving him the puffy hand gloves. Those puffy hand gloves are going to come back like 2 or 3 times. Riker is going to wear them in the episode First Contact. I just
Yep.
hate those puffy hand gloves. I hate them. I just don't like him at all. Like I said, get this man a topical. I just feel like you're going to be yelling that at the Star Trek screen a whole bunch, sometimes. But yeah, not a fan of you're right, the force aspect and using my mind to manipulate space travel. That does not seem very empirical. And yeah, I just think it opens up a huge can of worms. If we thought about it for even 5 minutes, there would be no Star Trek franchise, because all of our problems could be solved by like thinking a different reality and therefore changing it. So yeah. But still, nevertheless, besides that small gigantic thing, I still think this is one of my favorite episodes we've seen so far.
Oh, but no argument here on that. I just to make it an immortally classic episode. I think if they had stuck with the empirical more than the philosophical, I think it would work really well. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, a thought can solve everything. Okay, well, there's a few problems I can think of right now, which if you
Exactly.
thought really hard, I don't know, I'd like to travel some more. I
Exactly.
can't currently do that right now. So I kind of thought that was a little precious and a little, and I'm glad we agree with that. Scholar Beta. So with that in mind, I think I got some facts and awards, and then we can wrap up this episode. So
Let's do it.
yeah, let's do it. Trek first and facts. It's another episode and another chief engineer.
Yep.
We had a character in Naked Now who was the chief engineer. I said her name last episode. Her name was so forgettable. I can't consciously
remember
recall
it
it
either.
right now. You have this guy, Lieutenant Commander Argyle, aka the fat guy with the beard who assembles lore. You're going to see this is his first episode.
Oh yeah.
Yep, that's his first appearance. In terms of Trek facts, that seems to be definitely noteworthy. In case you're ever at a Star Trek trivia night and they ask about the first three engineers on the Enterprise D, you have Blonde Lady, who I might go through the script real quick while you talk about your salute to matte paintings and pull up her name because it's hurting me that I can't remember that right now. Maybe it's stage fright. And then Argyle, and then LaForge. Just like technically you have Picard and what's his name, Jellicoe, being captains of the Enterprise D for all of one episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say I'm going to let you look this up, but without looking it up, I'm going to guess that there's three chief engineers, and I think one of the names is Logan, one of the names is Argyle, and I cannot remember that lady's name. I swear her name is not said, but you said it was, so I'll let you go find that. So yeah, let's talk about it. Salute to matte paintings. There aren't any in this episode. There's some crazy special effects. I checked some behind the scenes writing, and no, those were not matte paintings. Those were actually special effects done with just some camera work and some lighting work. They look awesome in the tradition of 2001 Space Odyssey, as already said, but can't count them as a matte painting. But now we're going to talk about Enterprise interiors. I already talked about main engineering a little bit, and the silly elevator that takes you from one floor to the other or one deck to the other in main engineering. But I want to highlight another part of the Enterprise interior, and that is the Master Systems Display Table, aka the pool table. I love this piece of the Enterprise. This is going to be an interior that we're going to use a lot, and I love this piece because this is where the end of the episode takes place, where the Traveler sits on one side of that screen, and then Kaczynski sits on the other side, and they're able to figure out a way to get the Enterprise back home. Actually, that's the location where the Traveler just straight up disappears from. He starts turning invisible and then bing, just disappears. So yeah, I love the pool table, love Master Systems display table. Wish I had a replica in my own place, like as an island in my kitchen. I think that'd be incredible. That's a gift that, maybe one of our patrons can support sometime. But what'd you find out about the chief engineer?
So I just want to make the comment that when you said the Traveler disappears into thin air, is it reasonable to assume that he became one with the Force?
Exactly.
I know we're a Star Trek group, but there's that.
Like you said, yeah, that kind of feels a lot more like that, though.
More Star Warsy than Star Trek. Her name is McDougal.
McDougal, nice.
MacDougal.
Argyle and McDougal, and someone's got to go check out Logan. I swear Logan's gonna be one of as the chief engineer. That's either before or after these two. I can't remember.
Yeah, there you go. We'll figure it out. I'm going through these real meticulously. It's something that, given the pandemic right now, it's something I enjoy doing, and I love the addition of the pool table there. That's great. So as we're wrapping this up, big mahalo nui loa. That's Hawaiian for deepest thanks to all our listeners. Any feedback that you have, folks, greatly appreciated. This is something that we're both trying to use for our practices. In terms of public history, I can find some applications for this for my students, and definitely with Scholar Beta, with his students, I think everybody could benefit from that. So thank you for your support on that. Scholar Beta, do you have some other thank yous?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out for sure to Memory Alpha. I'm using that website as a way to check the names. I'm taking detailed notes while we're watching this, but Memory Alpha is invaluable in helping me catch the spelling and double checking the names of all the aliens and characters that we're coming across. Also want to thank TrekCore for the scripts and some screencasts that I've been grabbing and using and studying, especially those Blu-ray caps. I don't have a copy of that Blu-ray for all the seasons. Only have seen select episodes on Blu-ray. They look beautiful. I'm very grateful for that. And also grateful for the listeners who are coming along in the Captain's Yacht. There's plenty of space for as many listeners as possible. And yeah, throw in the comments what we're getting right, what else you want to know about. And like we said, we'll be responsive because we're trying to model what up and coming podcasters should be like. We're responsive to the audience, trying things out, getting material up there, and not perseverating so much on everything, but just trying to have an authentic conversation about something that's incredible, which TNG definitely is, without a doubt, I can say. So I think that's what I've got for this episode. Grateful again for your joining me on this retrospective, this journey through the Next Generation. Can't wait to hit up next week. Do we know what we got next week? What stories we're hitting?
Lonely Among Us is one. I had it up. So we got Lonely Among Us. I want to say Justice.
Oh, yeah.
So let me pull this up real quick in my... I am so glad I bought these on iTunes.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yep, so okay, Lonely Among Us, Justice, and The Battle.
And The Battle, absolutely. Yeah, can't wait to get into those. Okay, well, I think at Scholar Beta, signing off.
And Captain Kanaka, Monocle Enterprises on Teachers Pay Teachers, if you're interested in exploring my stuff. With that and all said, live long and prosper. As they say in Hawaii, e malama pono, which means take care, be safe, and be healthy. And we'll see you all later.
Peace and long life.
This concludes the light version of this episode. On behalf of Scholar Beta, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please stay tuned for deluxe versions of this episode, in which video footage will be interspliced with our commentary to enhance our podcast experience. With all that said, thank you very much for the support. Any feedback you give is appreciated because it helps the kids. And with that said, live long and prosper, e malama pono, and we'll see you next time.